The counselor's face had gone the color of bruised fruit. He stepped forward from the curved tier of his station, a thing that was simply not done, and pointed one long-fingered hand at the human standing beside the resonance obelisk. "You would elevate this," Vark said, "over the council of 17 sovereign houses?" The Empress had not yet answered. Neither had the human. 3 weeks earlier, the hardest part of Elias Thorne's assignment had been learning to stand still for 6 hours without shifting his weight. The Obsidian Citadel did not hire human guards for their combat value. The Selari court hired them because a human at a post was decor, familiar enough to ignore, foreign enough to never be trusted with anything that mattered. Elias had understood this on his first day and found it, quietly, or to be the best professional arrangement of his career. He stood at his assigned position beside the resonance obelisk, a floor-to-ceiling pillar of dark latticed energy that served as the chamber's primary force field anchor. And he watched. That was the job. Stand, watch, be unremarkable. The nobles gave him every opportunity to practice. The debate that morning had run 3 hours over its scheduled window, and not one of the 17 counselors had solved anything. They were arguing about projection matrices, outdated models Elias had gathered, used to calculate troop deployment across 6 border sectors. The problem was clear enough from where he stood. They were using a defensive framework designed 40 years ago to address a threat that no longer existed in the same form. He'd noticed the flaw inside the first 40 minutes. When he'd been cataloging the behavioral patterns of each counselor for the remaining 2.5 hours, Vark interrupted others 14 times. He never finished a sentence that acknowledged fault. Counselor Dane held her silence until her position became advantageous, then spoke in absolutes. The youngest of the group, a narrow-shouldered noble named Siel, watched the room more than he spoke, the only one besides Elias who seemed to be actually reading it. None of them watched the Empress. That was, Elias had concluded, their central and recurring error. Empress Xylar sat at the head of the chamber's crescent formation, and she had been watching him for the last 11 minutes. He'd registered it the way he registered most things. Cataloged, filed, acted upon only when necessary. But when she finally spoke, cutting through Vark mid-sentence with a single syllable of his own language, the room dropped into silence so fast it had physical weight. "The human," she said, in Salari and then in Standard, her gaze not wavering from the obelisk's post. "What does he think?" Elias did not move. He was furniture. Furniture did not think. "Guard," she said, directly, a command shaped like a question. He stepped forward from the obelisk's shadow. One step, no more, and every pair of eyes in the chamber found him at once. He felt the shift like a pressure change, the whole room recalibrating his value in real time. He told her what he'd observed, plainly, no ceremony, no titles woven through the assessment, no softening of the edges to spare the counselors their dignity. He told her the matrices were calibrated for a threat model that predated the current border configuration by a generation. He told her 3 counselors were optimizing for personal sectoral advantage rather than citadel-wide security. He told her Sale was the only one in the room who'd been asking the right questions and getting talked over. He stopped there. The silence lasted 4 full seconds. Then Empress Xylar laughed. A short, genuine sound, sharp as a blade catching light. And the court went so still that Elias could hear the low, continuous hum of the resonance obelisk behind him. "Leave your post," she said. "Walk with me." He was furniture no longer. The inner corridors of the Obsidian Citadel were nothing like the chamber. No curved tiers, no performance of power dressed in architecture. Just long, a dark passageways lit by recessed strips of cold light, and the Empress walking at a pace that suggested she had never once waited for anyone to catch up. Elias matched it. She asked him 3 questions. He answered all 3 without qualification. She did not respond to any of them, which he was beginning to understand was her version of approval. By the time they returned to the chamber, something had shifted in her bearing. A subtle forward angle, a decision made and locked. She reconvened the court with 2 words. The counselors reassembled with the careful speed of people who had been standing close to the door anyway. Then she used everything he had told her, not as a report, not as a citation. She dismantled the security protocols from the inside, and drawing the thread Elias had handed her until the entire framework came loose in front of 17 sovereign houses. She named no source. She needed to name no source. Every counselor in the room had watched her speak privately with the human by the obelisk, and the geometry of what had just happened was not subtle. Vark understood it first. That was why he stepped forward. And now, back in the open chamber under the cold weight of that collective silence, his fingers still leveled at Elias like an accusation, the question hung unresolved. Elias let it hang for exactly 1 breath. Then he said, "Counselor, a fortress designed to stop an army has never once stopped a pattern. Nothing loud, nothing with edges, just a fact, delivered the way a stone is set into a wall, because it fit and because it would stay." Vark's hand lowered, not in concession, in the slower, more uncomfortable motion of a man who has just found himself holding a position he can no longer explain. Empress Xylar did not look at Vark again. She announced the new advisory position in the same tone she used for everything. Flat, precise, final. No committee, no vote. The title was unprecedented, which she acknowledged with the brevity of someone who had already decided that precedent was the problem. Elias accepted with a single steady nod. His posture did not change. His expression did not change. But he did not return to the obelisk's post. He remained where he stood, forward in open floor, in plain sight. And the difference between that and where he had spent the last 3 weeks was the only celebration he needed. When the court finally emptied, the Empress Xylar moved to the viewport at the chamber's far end. Aeon Prime filled the glass, vast, layered in cloud and amber light, indifferent to everything happening inside the citadel's walls. Elias came to stand beside her, not close enough to presume, close enough to be deliberate. The resonance obelisk hummed behind them, steady and unchanged, anchoring a room that no longer needed him to hide beside it.